Afternoon with this panel on impact investing and crowdfunding. Jenny, of course, an expert in this, with Eve Picker and Devin Thorpe. Jenny, I'll let you take it away. Here you go.
Thank you. So, in full disclosure, I am currently doing a raise on Eve's platform. And I have to say, it's been an amazing experience. Eve is the founder and CEO of Small Change, a funding portal which opens the door to socially responsible real estate funded by everyday people. Her goal is to help build better cities by everyone, everywhere through small change. And Devin Thorpe is the CEO of the Supercrowd Inc., a public benefit corporation that helps social enterprises and community-focused businesses raise capital through crowdfunding. He has been actively involved in the crowdfunding and impact investing space for over a decade, working with numerous issuers and investors. Question for Devin. Why do you think crowdfunding is an important tool for impact, and how does that play out in your work?
I love crowdfunding as a tool for impact investing because it opens it up to everyone. And I love Eve's portal. Oftentimes her deals start at $100. I love that because that's genuinely open to a lot of people. One of my favorite portals for investing for impact is Climatize, and their minimum investment is always exactly $10. So it is literally anyone. I mean, you can be a barista working at McDonald's. I don't care where you're working. If you have a job, you could allocate $10 a month to your impact investing portfolio. And you say, well, what's $10 a month? $10 a month over 5 years gets to be real money. And if you reinvest all the proceeds, it starts to really compound. So it really matters. So it's an opportunity for everyone to participate. I love that. And I see the impact is just huge, right? We see it in what Eve is doing. Eve screens so carefully for impact in every aspect of what she's doing, helping you. But your work in this space has always been very focused on supporting especially diverse women, which Eve loves, which I love. And so what we see is an opportunity for all of us to support diverse founders, whatever they're doing. And so I've invested in all kinds of sometimes feeling like crazy businesses that don't necessarily align with my interests, but I see there's an opportunity. It's a valid business supporting a diverse founder who wouldn't otherwise have a shot. Disadvantaged going to the bank, disadvantaged going to VCs, and I get to play. That's why I love this space.
Eve, why did you decide to launch an impact-driven investment crowdfunding portal?
I think it was a crazy moment. Developer in Pittsburgh building a small and I think very impactful real estate portfolio that mattered to me. And there were a lot of people rooting for my projects. They were very, very difficult to finance. Really, my equity partner, if you want to call it that, was the Urban Redevelopment Authority. There were no private investors for my projects. And even banks were very difficult to convince because first, I'm a woman. And secondly, the projects that we're doing were not something they'd seen before. So when I heard about regulation crowdfunding, I thought it promised the opportunity to open doors for developers who haven't had the opportunity for whatever reason, and also for investors to invest in the places they live in. Just to give you an example, I would back up and say cities built by developers who get the same equity funds invested by the same people over and over again, and they look the same. And honestly, they're mostly old white men. So they're investing not because they want to make cities better, but because they want to get a return on their money. And then the banks follow them. And in order to get a loan with a bank, you must get an appraisal. And you can't get an appraisal if it hasn't been done before. So what you see on the streets of our cities is really the result of equity investment by the same people over and over again. And I I really wanted to change that with small change.
I absolutely love that. I have a master's degree in city planning, and it really is amazing how ugly and boring so many of our cities are because developers who are purely profit driven are just going to do whatever's most
I
simple
actually
and repeatable and
I'm not sure it's even the developers that are profit driven. I think it's the
the money, right?
It's
They're
the money
beholden
behind
to
it.
the money. It's all about investors come first. And if there's any benefit to other stakeholders, that comes second, and we're lucky to get it. So one thing about crowdfunding is it allows us to, obviously we want our investors to do well, but we want all of our stakeholders to be taken into account and cared for. Devin, you are an expert on storytelling for issuers. We heard earlier that it's so important for the issuer and not just the company, but the individuals involved with the issuer, the leaders of the issuer, to really connect with people for them to be able to raise money and have a successful crowdfunding campaign. So, how does an impact story affect issuers' ability to reach their funding goals?
I think fundamentally, one of the things we see in crowdfunding is that it's somewhat different than other aspects of the market. The impact oftentimes is a big advantage. If you're talking to a venture capitalist, a traditional angel investor, oftentimes if you hint at impact, they view it as some sort of a tax and they run. They run, like run from the room. Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you for sending us your, the door is closed before they finish the sentence. And in the crowdfunding space, you're reaching out sometimes to people who don't even know you. And the opportunity to start with the impact can instantly hook an interest and bring someone to the table before they've ever heard the first word about deal terms, structure, and opportunity. With that said, I have to just compliment Eve on her website because she does, I think, just the best job of all the portals. And I love crowdfunding. I've invested in a lot of portals. Nobody does a better job of identifying the impact and the return potential than an offering on her website, which I just love. So it's just great.
And I do that. I don't know if James Murphy's in the room because I'm really scared of FINRA.
But I think that's the great advantage of crowdfunding is you can, and I think should, start with the impact. How does this make the world a better place? And I know some of you are coming and thinking, well, my business doesn't have any impact. And I beg you to step back. I'm not asking you to greenwash. I'm not asking you to pretend, but take a minute and think genuinely about how your work might benefit the community where you're located. Take a minute to think about who you're going to employ, how your customers will use your product or service. I suspect that there's more impact there than you think, and it may be quite genuine, and I encourage you to leverage that in your storytelling.
So that, we talk about return, and somehow people have in their minds that return on an impactful or sustainable project is going to be less. That is not necessarily the case. We have one developer who's listed multiple projects on our site, and they share the return absolutely equally with every one of their small investors. What they get, their investors get. And I don't think
Is
that
that me? Oh, no, it's
I
not me. I
remember.
give more to my investors than I give to myself. Sorry. Go ahead, Eve.
And so I think we shouldn't gloss over that sometimes they're very generous returns.
Yes, you do need to invest in me. Yes, I'm definitely soliciting.
So let me be explicit because I'm not offering anything. I don't have a portal. I'm not working for Jenny. The great thing about impact investing is you can, in the crowdfunding world, I think pretty easily on a risk-adjusted basis, beat stock market returns. I believe you can do it. I believe I'm doing it with my portfolio. My portfolio is a little young to prove it, right? I've got some equity investments that are 3 months old. We don't know, right? But I'm convinced that in the crowdfunding space, you can, and I certainly see if you did a debt-only portfolio via crowdfunding, you could match the returns of the stock market, and I think you could build a portfolio with less risk that would perform better in a recession, perform better in good economic times. I think it would be a better portfolio all around.
I have a question for Eve. What still needs to change for regulated investment crowdfunding to reach its full potential to create positive impact in our world?
I made a list. It's not complete. I could go on, but these are some technical changes. So I think the $125,000 cap, for those of you who know this in the room, under 125,000, an issuer can self-report financials. Over 125,000, and they need to go get a third-party financial review, and that's insane. So I think that needs to change. The advertising rules are incredibly difficult for issuers to understand. We do our best to explain them, but I honestly don't know how they stay on the straight and narrow.
I actually just broke them a couple minutes earlier.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer.
I was trying to tell you that. So they're very, very difficult. I think, it's just very difficult, and it really should be simplified. There's something in these rules that require every single raise above 125,000 to attach a financial review, a third-party financial review, or third-party audit. In real estate, typically companies are inception companies. They haven't done any business. So these poor issuers are out there getting financial reviews of nothing. They haven't even opened a bank account yet. That's craziness. I'm sorry. That's craziness. And all of these things slow this business down, all of these really silly requirements. The regulatory burden on funding portals is huge. We're all small businesses, and it's like having a business on top of a business. It's really a lot. It's expensive and time-consuming, and none of us can really afford it. And I have to ask, why can't I invest in the offerings on my platform? Why can't my husband invest? He's seen as an extension of me. Or my employees, that is crazy. Is it because we're giving a fake stamp of approval? I don't know, but I spend a lot of time looking at these projects, and I would really love to invest in them. And then I think probably the biggest thing is investor education. Again, we're all tiny businesses. No one knows about regulation crowdfunding. It's just a minute number of people. And how's the world going to talk about it? Like, media doesn't care about it. Like, I do. I'm the media. I need a New York Times story that gets out to millions of people, and they won't write about it. So how do you educate people on this possibility when no one's really talking about it in a very large way?
No, you're right. It is a problem that the audience is small, but that's why I'm on the mission I'm on. And so I'm looking around at this room and saying, if you agree with Eve, that you think that this ought to be a bigger story, follow my work, support my work, because we're doing the mission she's looking for, right? Expanding the audience. If she's got an issuer, that issuer is invited to be on my show. My show goes out, reaches tens of thousands of people every month. That's what we're talking about, trying to grow this audience, and that's how we can help do that. I'm the vehicle. I mean, I hate to make this about me for a minute, but here's where I play the role. Here's how I help Eve and Jenny with their offerings. Jenny's been on my show. I can't count how many times.
Actually, I have one more, and this is a really big one. And I think that the regulations that don't permit Reg CF issuers to solicit or to talk about their offerings in the same way that someone listing a 506C offering can talk about it are going to kill Reg CF. I really think they are, because I don't think that accredited investors will ever take Reg CF seriously unless they can have the same sort of conversations that they have with issuers for 506C. So I think that's a really big problem.
I'd love to open it up and see if anyone has questions or comments. I'll just quickly say, as you're thinking about something you might want to add, I've been in the world of impact investing for quite a long time. And when I think about impact investing, my number one tool for that is crowdfunding, because it's just so much easier for the folks who are raising money to design their offerings in a way that really fit their particular mission, goals, plans, values, projections. They don't have to fit into a cookie cutter model that the funder creates. If they have good advice, they can design something that's really going to increase their chances of survival and making sure that their investors are well paid. And then with a lot of these organizations that call themselves impact investors, a lot of my clients chase after that money, and then sometimes they find that the impact investors aren't as friendly as their websites might make them look like they are. They often have lots of upfront fees and costs to even just be considered. The cost of capital can be quite high. So unfortunately, the world of impact investing really has a long way to go to be able to touch a lot of the businesses that can make really positive impacts. And whereas crowdfunding, we have everything we need right now to make it happen. So yeah, does anyone have anything they want to contribute, stories you want to share, questions?
My name is Tyre Shivers, Legacy Wealth Capital Group. I am local to Maryland, Baltimore, D.C. area. Yesterday, I attended a conference held by one of our larger PE firms in this area. 1,100 small businesses were there. They talked about bootstrapping. They talked about grants. They talked about loans. Of course, the major banks in the area were here. Every room that I went in and brought up crowdfunding, nobody knew. Or it was a negative comment from a VC saying that it was dangerous and that they're not sure that it has a place. The goal for me of broadening this message is I do happen to sit on a lot of panels. All of our counties have economic development centers. We have the chambers of commerce. So every conversation that I'm able to get in, every panel that I'm able to sit on, I'm talking about capital raising from a crowdfunding perspective. And I think if we all begin to infiltrate the grassroots and the organizations that are dealing with the small businesses in our states and counties, we'll be able to spread this message even further, not by having to recreate the wheel, but by being an auxiliary to what's already existing. So now I'm sitting next to the banks. I'm sitting next to the investment bankers. I'm sitting next to the PE firms saying, I'm not your enemy, I'm a partner, because there's a space for crowdfunding that can lend a business and help them get to where you want them to be, because sometimes they're just too small for you. They don't have the revenue. So let us help them at this stage, and then we can prep them for you, because all these businesses are looking for deal flow as well. And so we just become a part of the pipeline and the larger system.
So I just wonder, because part of where Devin comes in, which is really, really important, we need to do more of, is that you could do this and you could have people put up deals on all these platforms, but if the investors don't show up, it's not going to work. So that it's a two-sided platform. So I think like part of what we haven't really cracked fully is how to make sure that if someone puts up a decent deal, it gets. So I think if we can crack, that's when it all opens up. And I've really thought deeply about it. I wonder if anyone has any ideas, like, what? Devin's doing a great job, but everyone else.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I think we could really use some help from other players in the finance industry. For example, philanthropists, foundations, CDFIs, organizations that claim to care about making the world a better place and supporting small business. And there's so much that they can do. And I remember I spoke about this when I first became president. I talked about how this year is our year. We're going to bring in philanthropy. We're going to bring in CDFIs. And here we are. It's almost November. And to be honest with you, it hasn't happened. But we're going to keep talking about this, because I think when philanthropy does start to discover the impact that we have, and their money is going to go farther. And so the kinds of things I would love to see them do is co-invest with the community. That actually has happened to some extent on Honeycomb, but I would love to see them co-invest and maybe be willing to take a low or 0% return instead of asking to make the same return that the community investors make. They can afford to lose money. They're foundations. They don't need to make a return on their investments. And then loss reserves. They could create loss reserves where if something doesn't work out, all of the community investors, maybe those who are unaccredited, could get their money back. There's just so many different ways that these types of organizations could support our industry and help us be more effective. And it's not happening yet, but I think we will get there eventually. Yeah.
DW, again, thank you guys. I'll speak to one thing that our partners in Southern Arizona, Groundswell Capital and Aliados, and then a CDFI in Nogales Community Development, they are doing the backstop if you lose your capital. And so how it's structured is the foundation put up a percentage, and then that took it to the state, and the state said, actually, we'll do the rest. So money going into our partner fund in specifically in the jurisdiction of Tucson actually gets 100% backstop if for some reason the underlying investments fail. So it is happening. But my question is about the structure. My organization is structured as a public benefit corporation, able to raise from angels, VCs, et cetera, but also the reporting. I'm really trying to push others to look at what happened with OpenAI, who started with the catastrophe structure of a corporation and a nonprofit. Meanwhile, over here, you had Anthropic and Claude AI that started as a public benefit corporation. OpenAI got sued each other, all that kind of stuff. Now they're moving to a public benefit corporation. Finally, you can have one board and a unified mission and model stakeholders, and in addition to shareholders, right? So what has your experience been with there's a couple flavors now, public benefit corporation LLC, public benefit corporation, either Delaware or several of the states. But what has your experience been in that formation stage?
Yeah, I think I'm a lawyer. I work with a lot of public benefit corporations, Devin's. Yeah, I think there can be a lot of benefit, but on the other hand, there's not a lot of teeth to the statute. So it's pretty easy to be somewhat of a bad actor and still be a public benefit corporation. So I don't know if it's a panacea. There is something that's becoming a little more popular these days, which is a perpetual purpose trust, which actually is much more protective of mission. Patagonia famously, the founder donated pretty much all his stock to a perpetual purpose trust to ensure that that business would stay mission driven for forever, theoretically. So I'd love to have a conversation offline about different structures that we can use to stay true to our mission. But I think oftentimes it's really the financing that dictates how mission driven a company stays. You could form as any type of entity in the world. If your investors are demanding high returns at any cost, the company's not going to stay mission driven if that isn't consistent with what they're wanting. So you have to set up with investors that not only are in alignment with your mission, but also so that the governance is such that they cannot control the future of your business.
But the thing to keep in mind, DW, is that setting up as a PBC does put your shareholders on notice that you have the option at every day to choose mission over profit. And that's really an important distinction, so that you can tell your shareholders, sorry, we told you up front, mission first.
You're very right. That's a good point. All right. I think we're out of time. Thank you so much.